Hello and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today I am Big Solo Boy once again. We had a couple of issues during the week trying to organise a night to record. It was my birthday on Wednesday, it was Kurt's birthday on Tuesday, and yeah, we just couldn't quite line it up. So here we are, your boy is here on his lonesome again. But that's okay, I don't mind doing this every now and then, and often there are things that I can talk about solo to a camera that I can't really, they just don't sort of fit the format as much with Kurt. So it's a good time to get that stuff off my chest. This episode, I want to talk a little bit about things I've learned in the last year. Obviously being my birthday this week, and it's just over a year since when I started the channel. When I started uploading again to the channel and decided that this is what I wanted to do. And I think there's been a lot of trials and tribulations. Overall, I've been very happy with the consistency of everything, but yeah, there's certainly a few very important lessons that I've learned and a few things I'm going to change going forward. So I think I'm going to talk through some of that stuff, and I hope you find it interesting and useful as well. So about a year ago, I think it was July 21, I started the channel back up again. I can't remember why. I think we went back into lockdown and I just decided that I needed to do something productive and have something that I could show for it this time around, because I certainly wasted the first year of COVID lockdowns. And it was the best decision I've ever made, to be honest. It was my journey to taking back the thing that I loved and for taking responsibility myself for getting inspired and feeling like a photographer, and just doing myself the justice that I deserve, to be quite honest. Because really, I've probably mentioned this on the podcast before, but all the time I have friends in real life saying, "Hi mate, how are you? What's happening? Are you still taking photos?" And the thing is, I work every day in photography, literally. Now more than ever, even though I've scaled back a little bit at my photography job, I now work Mondays just on this channel. Literally every waking moment that I'm not with my beautiful wife and my son, I'm working on this stuff or thinking about this stuff. And I'm sort of hesitant sometimes to bring up my family life and my personal life a little bit, because in a way it is private, and it's sort of, in a way I feel like it'd be nice to keep that separate. But then again, I really appreciate when the creators, when the YouTubers that I watch, get a little bit vulnerable and let you in to their world a little bit. And I've noticed that every time that I've done that, there's been a response. Not a huge response, but it is quite hard to get people to interact in general with the channel, to be quite honest. So to get some positive feedback and some nice messages and DMs, it feels really good, and it reminds me that people are here not just for content. They're here because perhaps you connect with my personality. Certainly that's why I follow most of the YouTubers that I follow, is because you connect with someone, and a YouTube channel really is a relationship with that person. There are people that I've been following for 10, 12 years probably at this point on YouTube, and I really feel like I feel like they're my friends almost. So I can only hope that in the future there will be people who feel like they have that sort of relationship with me. Anyway, there's a certain frantic energy to my weekends now. Every spare minute that I have is spent on my content, and I really just honestly find it hard to justify spending time doing things outside of working on my videos or spending time with Jem and Ziggy. It's, social things, small social things I try and do once a week or every second week or whatever, and friends want to hang out and catch up, and that's fantastic. And I know, it's something not to be taken for granted, and it's something that I need to work on, in its own way. You can't neglect that part of your life either. But for me, I feel guilty anytime I'm not working on my stuff. And when I am working on my stuff, I feel guilty that I'm not with my wife and my son. And when I'm with them, I feel guilty that I'm not doing this. So I just feel like, my time is best spent at the moment either working on my videos or this podcast, or just spending time, especially with my baby boy. And it's about finding a balance, I suppose, because from Friday night to Monday night, I'm either working freelance or doing this stuff, and I get that long term it's probably not healthy to think that way, but at the moment I just feel so much passion for it and so much drive, and I just really want to take advantage of that, because I know from experience that doesn't last forever. But I think I also know from experience that I think I'm going to be better in future at dragging myself back into this positive, consistent state. I'm starting to ramble a little bit here, but I think this is important. So I want to talk about some of the things that I've learnt this year, and I'm no spring chicken anymore. It's time to really make things count. And one thing that has really been fulfilling me about the channel is forcing myself to get out there and do things and do them consistently. So every week or every Monday or every second Monday, I'm out shooting something. Whether it's paid or not, I will plan and book something, and often I'll have someone helping me film. I've had Pantelis with me a couple of weeks, and been very proud of what I've been doing. And a funny thing that has come along with that is almost every week I find myself having something to update on my website or to post to Instagram. And both of those things I haven't really done in the last 3 years. When I go through the stuff on my website, it's largely been untouched in the last few years. I mean, every photographer that you speak to, if you get a business card or you ask for their website or whatever, they say more often than not, check out my Instagram, my website is not up to date, or I'm in the process of updating my website, I think is a pretty common one. But actually that's something that I've really enjoyed, and it's quite special to see them in that format, to see them on a big screen in a good resolution, because it's something that you just miss from social. So I've actually, a couple of times a week, or at least once a week, I spend some time going through what I've done. And I'm sort of proud to say that almost every shoot, I feel like there's at least something that I can post on my website and be proud of to display in amongst, this collage of my favorite pieces over the last 10 years, I suppose, I've been shooting. And that's a nice feeling. My biggest goal, honestly, when I started back doing the channel, was to fall back in love with photography. I was going to document my journey to fall back in love with photography. And I really think I can tick that one off, or at least say that I am ticking it off, because photography is now something that, it's become the thing that I want to build again, along with the channel. But every week I'm genuinely excited to share the images that I've taken, and not just that, the reaction that I've been getting, particularly from the client, or particularly from the subjects that I've been shooting. I think people are surprised, to be honest, that I can shoot, because I haven't been showing the world that that's what I do for the longest time. So that's been a really rewarding and important process for me, and I'm stoked. I think one of the ways that I can sort of measure that for myself is that when I become really interested in gear again, when I become interested in what's coming out, when I'm researching new pieces or buying and selling, and we've spoken at length about this sort of thing on the podcast before, but I really think that when, I don't want to encourage just buying things for no reason, but when you are really interested in tools and the tools that can make your life easier or make your job faster or more efficient and effective, I think that's when you're, for me, that's one of the indicators that I'm really involved in what I'm doing. Some other things that I've learned this year, the most important thing for me has been consistency. And if nothing else, the podcast has been this for me. I've basically not missed a week. This is going to be the 40th one in a row, I believe. There may be one or two where instead of uploading on a Sunday, I uploaded on a Monday, and then maybe the next week, I uploaded, the next week instead of in that week again. But basically every podcast has gone out within a week of each other, 40 weeks in a row. And particularly with two busy people in the mix, like Kurt and myself, I'm really proud of that. The podcast doesn't do big views, but I think between probably on average 75 to 100 on each. When I think about 75 to 100 people standing in a room, that makes me really proud. And I know there's a small group of core viewers or listeners that are, coming back every week to check it out, or if not every week, going back and listening to the previous weeks and catching up. And you guys know who you are. Just on that quickly, I have been thinking a little bit about it, and I'm sort of wondering if the podcast is actually hurting the channel. So the jury is still out. I haven't decided on what I'm going to do. Whatever I do, I'm going to see it through a full year. I'm going to do 52 episodes. I just haven't decided if I'm going to keep doing the video podcast or just switch it to audio only, because I really like the video format, and I think that's something sort of different and unique that Kurt and I can deliver that a lot of other people wouldn't be able to execute the way that we do. The podcast in general I love. I don't see myself stopping the podcast. I've really enjoyed that, but I'm just tossing up as to whether I move to audio only, and post it to Spotify and Apple and all that stuff. Because I think I'm trying to decide whether it's good or bad that everyone else can see the views on the video. So as much as I don't really care about views in that way, I do feel like it could be detrimental if I do video and then I do the audio podcast. And in the audio one, I think at least half, probably most people would end up watching most or listening to most episodes on audio. And that would obviously take away from a lot of the views on the channel. And then to see these videos that are 40, 50 minutes long that have, only 20 or 30 views, it's sort of, I think it could actually hurt the channel even more. It's really weird the way the algorithm works, but if you don't have good click-through or good retention, I'm pretty sure it brings the channel down as a whole. In fact, I've seen that in my analytics. I've gone down from something like, let's say, I'm not sure what it was, 70 or 80 subscribers a month to sometimes it's like 10 subscribers a month. And again, just to reiterate, I don't really care about those sort of numbers at the moment. My goal is a process-based goal. It's not an outcome. I can't control the amount of subscribers that come in, but I can control making 2 great pieces of content a week. And my goal for the foreseeable future is just to make 2 videos a week. And that's what I've been doing. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what to do there. I do feel like if I did audio, it would potentially be less work and it would cost a little bit more, unfortunately. You have to pay a monthly fee to host and to stream your podcast, and that's one thing to weigh up as well. But I think maybe if no one else is seeing the views, or if no one else is judging it based on how many views are on a video, then I don't know, I feel like maybe that could be a better thing for people's perception of the podcast. I'm just thinking out loud here. That might be silly, I'm not too sure. But it's something that I've been thinking about. I'm going to try and ride out the full year on video, but I may switch to audio only and just not do the podcast on the channel anymore. If you have any input regarding this topic, please let me know. I mean, I could be completely wrong, and in fact, switching to audio might greatly increase the numbers, because a lot of people don't actually have YouTube Premium, that's for sure, and it's harder to sit and watch the video, even if it's just playing in the background, because without YouTube Premium, you can't minimize the window on your phone. You can't download it. The video is perhaps hurting it and making it a little bit less accessible for a lot of people. So I think it would reduce some barriers, make it easier to listen, and perhaps even bump up the numbers. Something that I've been thinking about. So the importance of consistency, I think, like I said, the podcast has been the best thing for this for me, because I really don't want to miss a week. There's nothing more disappointing than when someone says they're going to do something and they don't do it. And the amount of people that I've done it as well in the past with the previous podcast, but the amount of people that you see that start a podcast and are very enthusiastic for a few episodes, half a dozen, and then just drop off because they realize maybe, the rewards aren't what they think they were. I think it's most. I'd say 90% of podcasts. I can't remember the stat, but it might be something like 90% of podcasts don't last, 40 episodes, 50 episodes, something like that. The fact that I get the podcast done every week, sometimes with Kurt, we record 2 in a row, and that means that it takes the pressure off both of us with scheduling, and then I can, post one that week and another the next week, and that's been really good. And that has freed up my time to work on other content during the week. Often I'll alternate. I'll have sort of one bigger video that takes a long time to shoot and edit, and then I might have one shorter video, like a POV, street photography video, that sort of thing. I understand there's a lot of those on YouTube, but for me, that's a really easy, quick, and enjoyable thing to make, and I really enjoy it. So I've been doing a few more of those, but yeah, that's what the process looks like at the moment. I keep losing my train of thought, to be quite honest. Some other things that I've learned this year. I think through this whole process, I've become more confident in myself, not just as a photographer, but as a person. And I have just decided that I know what's best for me. And in doing my own shoots and, trying to be my own boss and, be in charge of my own future, I've been really working hard on trying to nail down what I think my style is. And I think a really important thing is to just make a decision and stick by it. It's so easy to say something or decide something and then backflip on it. Or, on a shoot, if someone's asking you, should we do this? Should we do that? What do you think of this? Give your opinion and, stick by it. Like, make a decision. It almost doesn't matter what it is, as long as you make it and stand by it. I feel like your subject or the other people on set are going to respond to that better than you being indecisive. I think, if you can direct someone, if you can, make a hard decision on lighting or composition or something, then in a way it takes the pressure off everyone else, because I think most of the time when you're on a big set, and I'm certainly guilty of this, there's a lot of other people involved that are gonna want to have a say over that shoot. So you obviously don't want to do the wrong thing by anyone, by the client, by the marketing manager, by the stylist, whoever is having a say, whoever's looking over your shoulder. You're not necessarily doing that work for you. So sometimes you don't feel empowered to make that decision. So that's been one really important thing for me to start booking my own shoots regularly, is to give me the confidence to make a decision, because the truth is I've never once stuffed up a shoot. I've never once failed in any way that wasn't salvageable. We all make little mistakes here and there, but I've never had a client be unhappy with what I've done. And I have to remind myself that sometimes, that you've done this for long enough. Your skill is, up to par. You are capable of doing this and more, and you only get it by doing it on your own. I think, if you have to deliver something for someone else, or to match someone else's taste or someone else's style or something else, there's a little voice in your head that just doubts you, and you don't have that empowerment to make the decision to put your stamp on something. So that's something else that I've learned. Just make your decision, stick by it, and trust your gut. And for me, my gut is right most of the time. What else have we got on the list here? One thing that I'm learning is to never lock myself into a tool or a technique or a method. Sometimes I think something is the right thing to do, and then after the fact I might try something else that I thought was wrong. What's a good example for this? Let's say in Photoshop, there's always multiple ways to do something in Photoshop. I actually think personally it's really important to stay up to date with the new updates in Photoshop, because there are so many things in the last couple of years that have changed that would just have taken so much time in the past. Another good example is Lightroom and Capture One. Every time I think I decide, talk about making a decision and sticking by it, I was pretty hard into Capture One of late. I still am, I suppose. I use Capture One for 90% of everything. But I did have a play in Lightroom, and there are some fantastic new features in Lightroom. Anyway, there's never going to be the one perfect solution, and if you stay up to date on all these things, and there might be one little tool that's available in one program, or one style of shooting that someone else is offering that you're not offering, if you can stay fluid and be adaptable in that way, then I feel like you give yourself a big competitive advantage that perhaps you might miss out on, or someone else might have over you. I don't know if that's a good example or not. The Capture One thing is a big one for me. I think I said publicly on the podcast, I'm all in on Capture One. And recently I've used Lightroom a little bit and remembered the things that I used to love about Lightroom. And I also think it's important for me to stay relevant with Lightroom, because I think most people shoot with Lightroom. I'm not here trying to convert anyone one way or the other, but I think for viewers of the channel in particular, I think Lightroom content is going to be much more relatable and easily digestible as well. What else have we got? So I think there's a term called hedonic adaptation in psychology. I'm pretty sure what that means. Someone feel free to correct me. I'm no psychologist, but I'm pretty sure that means that before you have money, or before you have gear, or before you have whatever, let's say you start on a very, very basic camera, I started on a Nikon D5000. Before I got that, I was so excited about it. I was reading reviews, I was looking at prices online, I was checking out all the accessories to get, and I was so excited when I first got that camera. I was shooting everything, absolutely loving it. It was, some of the happiest photographic memories that I have, really. And then you get that and you slowly get used to it and you adapt, and you start looking at the next thing. For me, it was I wanted to get a prime so I could get some depth of field. Got a 35mm 1.8. I think I might have got a 50mm as well. And for a little while, that's okay. That's really cool. That's a new thing. It's fresh, it's hot, you're enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, maybe I need a wide lens. Get yourself a wide lens for a while, that's cool. Maybe this wide lens isn't as good as I thought. Maybe I should get a better wide lens. Anyway, it goes on forever and ever and ever. And we talk about gear a lot on this channel, but what I want to say is I think in general we're better off, anticipation over time is the real actual joy that you get from gear and from equipment. It's not necessarily getting the thing and using the thing. Often the real pleasure and the exciting part about new equipment is the lead up to it and the research and shopping around and trying to find the best deal, and then the process of actually acquiring it. Tell me if I'm wrong here. If anyone in the comments thinks the best part is actually using your new toy or acquiring the new toy. Something that I've been thinking about, but I really think anticipation over time, really thinking about it and just giving yourself time and space to exist without that thing. I think that's really healthy, because if you just run out and buy something, it's a real slippery slope. You get caught in that hamster wheel. We're all guilty of it at some point, but I actually think it's going to be not only better for your mental health, but it's also going to be better for your photography, because you're going to learn to do more with what you have. That might be super obvious. That was just a little note that I wrote down. Hedonic adaptation in photography. I think most of the time that sort of term, that sort of phrase is used in terms of like, a house and a car and this and that. But I think it relates just as equally and is just as important in photography. And I think, if you're thinking about something, particularly a big piece of gear, just ruminate, just let it sit with you for a little while. This time last year, I thought I desperately needed a Sony a7S III, and I was sort of trying to work out a way, that I could justify spending $4 or $5 on a new camera body for video. And while I think that is something, particularly 4K slow-mo is now very, very important. If I was doing professional video work, freelance video work myself, I would 100% get a camera that does, high resolution slow-mo. But for the video that I'm doing for this channel, I don't really need it. And in fact, I have a lot more gear at my disposal than most other people, with a channel the size of mine. So, I can make do with what it is. And I'm so glad I sat on it for a while and didn't just go out and buy it and, lock away that capital, because cash flow is very important in business and in life, and particularly if you have a family and a mortgage and a son. I also want to talk about, I've been chatting to and hanging out with another YouTuber, Mark Weimel's his name is. I actually met Mark quite a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. He used to do a fishing channel, and fishing has always been one of my favorite hobbies and passions. And we connected over that, and we hung out, did some fishing, and sort of didn't speak to him over the pandemic. And I found out recently that he's doing a photography channel now. And a lot of it is gear-based, reviews, comparisons, that sort of thing. A lot of it based on APS-C mirrorless, third-party lenses, getting the best out of cheap gear, which I can certainly empathize with. I used to do a lot of that stuff on the channel. And he's been doing a really good job of it. So he's been teaching me a little bit about how to package my content a little bit, because I think, in my opinion, if I can talk a little bit selfishly about myself, like I've been doing for a lot of this episode, if I can package my content a little bit differently for the YouTube audience, not just for my current subscribers, I think it is going to be ultimately the best and only way I can move forward with the channel. Now that I have this consistency, and now that I'm, in my opinion, making good content, or content that I am at least proud of, it's time to actually take some responsibility and really level up my thumbnails and titles and really play the game. Like, just try and be the best YouTuber that I can, because now that I've got the consistency and now I've got the momentum, it is honestly just a waste to not make the most of what I'm doing. If you're not familiar with sort of how YouTube works, it's really, really important to sort of think about thumbnail and title first before you make a video. Instead, what I've sort of done for the past year is I've thought of something that would be really interesting to shoot or film or talk about, something that could possibly be helpful for you guys as the audience. And then afterwards, I've tried to figure out, after the video was edited, what the thumbnail, what the title, description, all that stuff is. And unfortunately, it's just backwards. Like, the YouTube algorithm is really, it's going to reward attention. How many people that see my thumbnail in their feed are clicking on it and staying on it, because YouTube wants you on their platform engaged for as long as possible, because that's how they make money. So you'll probably see me hanging out with Mark in some future videos. We filmed one last week for his channel, and it's also just really nice to have someone sort of going through the same stuff as you go through, because this YouTuber thing is a very lonely life. If anyone has some good recommendations for Melbourne YouTubers, online creators, vloggers, any of that sort of thing, please let me know, because I would love to get a little group going where we can hang out and make some content together, or just at least, empathize with each other. It is a bit of a lonely world, and it's nice to know you're not alone. So you might see some of that in a little bit of a change in the content or the way I do thumbnails and that sort of thing. It's a learning process, but it's just like, I'm doing all the work already. Why wouldn't I just do that extra 10% and try and make it effective as possible, and try and actually grow the audience now. That's just about it for this one. I think there's only so long that I can just keep talking on my own into the microphone. Thank you so much if you've made it this far into the video. I don't have a tool of the week for you, but I just want to say I really appreciate it if you've been around for my journey. I say this not just for myself, but for anyone that's making something and putting themselves out there. If you think something nice, or you get real enjoyment or value out of something someone creates, cooks, photographs, anything someone does, it might be something nice someone's wearing. If you think something nice, tell that person. Be sincere and put yourself, go first. Put yourself out there. I know sometimes it feels like, it feels like a little bit embarrassing. It feels like if you compliment someone, or if you go first in that way, then perhaps you're putting yourself on a level that's lower than the other person. If you talk about how much you love something that they did, I actually don't think that's true at all. I think, I can think back in my life and think about a very specific few examples where someone has said something really nice or kind to me about what I do or who I am or whatever, and those things stick with you forever. And, as a small YouTuber myself, just every little comment or message or whatever goes such a long way. And don't get me wrong, I'm I'm not stopping, I'm not going anywhere, and I'm really happy with the momentum that I have. But I just wonder how many people would have not quit had they had a little bit of positive reinforcement every now and then. And I'm trying to remember this myself and trying to pay it forward. And if I think something nice about someone else, just to let them know and give them that little gift. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, the best way you can support me is by hitting like on this video, leaving a thoughtful comment down below, and subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.